make your products easy to cancel, make it a great experience, and people will come back.
Coffee's for closers only.
So we've established my proposal is sound in principle. Now we're just haggling over price.
Let's see how much we're going for on eBay.
Man, it's the same as Dunkin' Donuts. Costs 15 times the price.
Welcome to Impact Pricing, the podcast where we discuss pricing, value, and the recurring relationship between them. I'm Mark Stiving. Today our guest is Kathy Sexton. Here are 3 things you want to know about Kathy before we start. She is the CEO and publisher at Subscription Insider. That's why we're talking to her. She's really important. She was on the board of directors of Software and Information Industry Association for many years, and she's an avid skier with a wrist injury. I'm thinking you don't do it right if you're skiing on your wrists. Welcome, Kathy.
Well, I wasn't trying to ski on my wrist, but sometimes it happens.
Sometimes. Okay, so tell us about this subscription thing. How did you even get into subscriptions in the first place?
Well, I've worked with a number of different business models, both software B2B and consumer-driven models that were advertising-driven and subscription-driven, but geared towards consumers. So I've worked in it for years and had a deep interest in that, learned it in the trenches, both on the B2B and B2C side, and then worked in an industry association where we really supported companies that were really trying to understand the intersection of technology and whatever business model they were in. And a few years ago, I actually literally had a near-death experience and decided, you know what? I really want to do something that is really for myself and something that I can grow. And the subscription industry, the subscription economy is just booming. And given my background and experience in it, I launched Subscription Insider, focused across the whole subscription industry. And our mission, Mark, is one of education and empowerment. We want to help executives, whether they're just starting out, whether they're managing, multi-millions of members and subscribers, to help them do their job better and be more profitable, whether they're in, finance, whether in marketing, whether in tech, or whether the executive in charge of everything. So my mission is to help everybody get smarter.
Nice. That's kind of like our mission too, is we like to help people get smarter, and we focus mostly on pricing and value.
Mm-hmm. Important. Very, very important part of the equation.
Yeah, pretty nice. When we talked last time, which we had a chance to, just so the audience knows, we had a chance to chat a little bit a week or so ago. You had mentioned that you do B2C and B2B. Mm-hmm. Are you also, I've spent no time thinking about, we ship out physical product on a regular basis. Is that much of your business, or is that something that people are really interested in?
Well, the subscription economy has millions and millions of recurring revenue subscription and membership companies in it now. And subscription box and direct to consumer is a big, big segment of it, and it's worth billions of dollars. The subscription economy, yes, it includes B2B SaaS and IoT, but think entertainment. Those videos that you're streaming, that is subscriptions. The newspapers that you're reading online or other types of information, those are subscriptions. Your memberships to AAA are subscriptions. And even your subscriptions to telecommunications, whether they're wireless companies or cable companies, those are subscriptions. So we work with all different companies across the subscription economy. As I mentioned, they could be startups and they could be these multi-billion-dollar companies that are just really trying to understand the latest strategies for dealing with something so they can get that extra little edge of retention and profitability.
Nice. And I guess the reason I asked that question is it feels like the box subscriptions is such a different business than SaaS online B2B type subscription business.
That is a great, great question. And it is, and it isn't. Do I sound like a consultant?
Right. There's got to be similarities and differences.
But the thing is, there's fundamentals that are truly the same, and but how you're executing those fundamentals might be different. So when you're looking at the financials and the payment processing and the recurring revenues and handling and managing failed payments, if you're looking at retention and best practices of retaining your customers and understanding your customers and using retention best practices, there's a lot to be learned from SaaS, from entertainment, to be learned from the subscription boxes. There's some really great lessons that can go across the different types of business models that are in the subscription industry, but how they execute them might be different because it is a different model.
Okay, so as you were describing that, that made so much sense to me. And I'm going to put it in pricing terms for just a second.
Okay.
You could take a subscription box company and a SaaS company and say, well, do they price differently or do they price the same? And I would have given probably the exact same answer that you just gave. Right?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
There's so much similar, and yet there's differences because of the situation or the environment, and we just deal with it to the best we can. So I often think of pricing best practices or first principles to say this is what we go back to. So,
well, I'll give you an example of things that are similar that are different. I literally was just working with an expert on payment processing. And there's some trends that impact recurring revenue that any subscription or membership company needs to know about. If you're a SaaS company, your subscription is really like the lifeblood of a company that's buying that software. So whether it's a lower price point or a higher price point, your subscription is the lifeblood of supposedly, we're assuming of that company. Now, when you're looking at a box company, it's a consumer. If you're looking at a box company that's targeting 20-year-olds, they actually might be buying their recurring revenue products with debit cards or other types of digital wallets that are not traditionally considered as payment methods because that's what they do today. So the basic process and the basic tactics of managing failed payments and tracking them and all of that is similar, but because your audience is different, how they interact with your brand is all going to be different.
that makes all the sense in the world. Absolutely. Do you write much on pricing in your magazine? Do people talk about pricing? Is it an issue? I mean, I personally know it's an issue, but I'm just curious how much the executives think it's an issue.
It's something that is of keen interest across everybody that I talk to. And a lot of confusion and lack of understanding about what is the best pricing strategy, and understanding, if you're recurring and you're offering monthly versus an annual, and what's that price difference between that monthly and annual, how does that impact the take rate at the front end? And how does that impact the lifetime value? So people understand that the pricing can have a really significant impact on their business, and trying to understand. I mean, that's the lifeblood, and trying to make sure that they're doing it right and really doing it well.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that a lot of people focus on that. What's the take rate going to be, or what's my acquisition rate going to be? Mm-hmm. And then I trade that off against, well, what's the retention rate going to be?
Yep.
And I love that you said those two. And it's also pretty typical to me that most people don't talk about the third bucket, which is equally important, if not more so. And that's, how do I grow those customers, right? How do I get them to buy more from me than they bought last month?
Yep. Yeah, it's your intake, it's your retention, and it's your expansion. Mm-hmm. And if I can get on my soapbox a little bit about tracking all this stuff, it's so important for anybody that's listening, and I'm sure I know you talk about this all the time, understanding where you get your customers from and setting up a system so you can track that customer through their lifetime and truly understand the lifetime value by acquisition source is so important for you to create profitability quicker in your business. And a really simple example is if you get somebody in via pay-per-click and your product is $100 a month, they stick around for 2 months. Woohoo, you got $200. All right. But what if they came in via a referral channel and they stick around for 8 months? That's $800. And that information can inform how you want to invest in each of those channels and get more aggressive where you're going to have more profitability. And it's shocking to me, literally shocking. I have been in rooms with hundreds of people from some of the biggest subscription brands you could think of that you would think are the most sophisticated at this. And I will ask, how many of you, raise your hands, can measure your profitability by acquisition channel? And maybe a couple of hands will go up. And it's shocking to me because that is the lifeblood. And then you take that concept and then you'll be able to twist the prism a little bit to understand the pricing, to understand other dimensions in your business. Then you're really in control and you can really understand what's going on. And it's a skill set that I think as an industry we could be stronger at. And I also see the beginnings of some great technology that's helping people track this in a more efficient way through the subscription management platforms, through some, add-on technology and data providers. So it's a growing awareness that is much needed and to be managed. So I'll get off my soapbox now. So
Okay. I actually love that soapbox. I didn't realize that was such a big problem. Let me explain what you just said using the words that I would normally have used. And that is, what's the cohort of clients that we're going to take and measure against? And the way I think about this, and I'd love to hear your opinion on what you see out there. The way I think about this is every single customer, I could have a bunch of different data points or pieces of information about it. So what part of the country do they live in? Or what program did they come under? What month of the year did they join us? Or what was the marketing plan that I used that captured them? Or, right. And so those are just data points that I could use for that customer.
Right.
Now I can step back and take all my data and say, well, let's look at the cohort of customers who joined us in March. Okay. So that's a cohort. Is March more profitable than other things? And what was the cohort of people who came through referral? And are they more profitable?
Yep.
I would think that everybody's doing this.
Well, I think there might be, there's certain awareness in talking about this, but the tools to really do it and the skill set across organizations, I don't think is deep enough. When you look at this, so for example, with SaaS, I think the SaaS industry as a whole is maturing with this type of data. And so they're getting, there's some tools and discussions and a lot more awareness on this type of discussion across the different teams. You look at the subscription boxes as a whole, there's some companies that are really sophisticated with this, and then there's some that are still focused on acquisition and bringing everybody in the top, and they're still learning that retention lesson, which is a tough lesson to learn if you're not focusing on that as a recurring revenue company. So it's you can drown in data, but you still can't see the forest through the trees, and it's really looking at the right data with the right filters and understanding how it's impacting your business and where you can pull some different levers to grow.
I guess I could see that. Do you think of insurance companies as subscription companies?
That's actually really interesting because they do bill year after year, and I've actually think I've had one or two insurance companies come to our events, but I wouldn't include them in my traditional example
Okay.
when I list. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to use them as an example, but let me use the New York Times instead, right? Some
Okay.
magazine or newspaper or something like that. So when I think of a very traditional type subscription business, I could see how they're not doing the things we just talked about in terms of cohorts, because it's never been part of their thought process or their lexicon. Whereas the new people coming out, this is what they learn. This is how you learn the business, is to go run cohorts. Does that make sense or not?
I think I think that it's an assumption that is not necessarily going to prove itself out. And the reason why I say that is some of these companies have some brilliant, that have been around for a while, have some brilliant, I mean, off the charts, brilliant people in a skill that's referred to as direct marketing. And a lot of the newer kind of companies and tactics and all that stuff, kind of, maybe they won't admit it, but they might, look down on that. But here's the thing. You talk to somebody in direct marketing, they know the profitability of every single thing in their business, and they can scale. And because they've worked with thin margins, and they can scale things. And typically these companies are very, very sophisticated. Some of the stuff that the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post and all these, they are doing some amazingly sophisticated things with paywall, with AI, with the skill sets that they have. So it's there's skill sets, and so I don't want to say it's an incorrect assumption, but I think that just because something's new and just because people are using the word cohort, it doesn't mean that they're really driving their business and using that in an effective way to grow profitably, where some of these other companies who've been doing it for decades have learned some really, really hard lessons and have brought in some people with some of the new skill sets with AI and all the data and all that stuff, and they're doing some really interesting things. I mean, the New York Times has really transformed itself in many different ways. So that's a great example of using some old skills and new skills combined to really, really grow.
Yeah, nice. All right, where do we want to take this? Tell me the biggest. Well, we already talked about the biggest pricing issue. Do you have any other big pricing issues in the subscription industry?
Well, I think that software has to grapple. There's several different things that I think people need to be aware of. Number one, with offer. Many companies in recurring like to offer a free trial. Many test with freemium or do sampling or do other things. And I think those are really, really good to test and to try, because free trials can bring in people to test out your product. There's just things that you need to be aware of that if you're in e-commerce, you'd be oblivious of the rules and regs that the government wants you to adhere to when it comes to free trials, in terms of notification, of the free trial ending, ability to cancel in the same way that they've joined. There's increasing amounts of regulation that are coming out of DC and the states related to free trials. And there's increased action against companies too, as well as making claims. So you have to be aware of what you are allowed to do, so you don't get into hot water inadvertently. And consumers these days, business and consumers, are much more sophisticated about what the rules are. And if they think you're crossing that line, they will let you know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And do you write about the rules in your magazine?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We work with a lawyer who's actually an expert in auto renew, as the lawyers call it, negative option. And a negative option, the definition is when you take a free trial, you have to give your credit card, and then as soon as the trial's done, you start getting charged. The consumer does not have to, doesn't opt in again to give you the card. So that's the negative option. There's a lot of regulation and rules around that. So yeah, we write a lot about that, and it's with increasing frequency because is just a lot of things going on. There's companies that are just doing outright fraud that the FCC is going after, and then there's companies that are just not doing things in a smart way, like making it difficult to cancel. And that's caused a lot of regulatory examination to make sure that it's easy to cancel. And honestly, I mean, this, if you make your product easy to cancel, it might seem counterintuitive, but people will come back. It just might mean that they don't need your product for now. And if they have a great experience canceling and they don't have to click 50 million boxes to cancel or threaten a lawsuit to cancel.
Search for a phone number on site and call somebody.
Oh, I got to tell you a secret here. The thing I did not, so if you were going to ask me a question about what was the one thing I did not expect when I started this business, it would be getting calls from every other subscription company in the planet from their customers trying to cancel their product.
Wow.
So we get calls daily. So that's why I had to make sure this got turned off because I have a soft phone in here. And we get emails and we get phone calls from consumers who are trying to cancel. Think of the newspaper, think of magazines, online, you name it. They're trying to cancel and they had a tough time canceling, and they Google it, and we've maybe written an article about them. So suddenly we're in the middle of the results when they're trying to type in, and we have our phone number because we
Right.
do what we practice, and so we get those people calling, and it's crazy. I gotta say, it's crazy. I mean, I feel bad for so many of these people because they just want to cancel the product and they're frustrated. Some of them are really, really mad. And when I see the customer service line and I see like somebody calling like 5 times, I know it's just somebody that's beyond belief, like frustrated because they'll call and we're not the company. They'll call, we're not the company. They keep thinking they got the wrong number. And so I'll call and I'll explain and oh my goodness, they're just so frustrated. So make your products easy to cancel, make it a great experience, and people will come back.
That actually sounds like a business opportunity if anybody wants to start a business on how to help people cancel subscriptions.
Well, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, Mark, because there are companies that are doing that. And the credit card companies now are starting to offer tools. So within PayPal, you can manage some subscriptions there. Some of the issuers are beginning to develop tools. And then there are outside services where you can put in all your subscriptions and they will cancel them for you. So honestly, with any business, you want to have that direct relationship with your customer. So if they have any issue, they come to you first and not to some third-party provider. The worst thing you want is just to have a cancellation, no reason why, you've lost that business and no way to recover it.
Yep. Okay, I got to go back to something because when you were talking about one topic, I could just hear everybody in the audience screaming at me, what are the rules? What are the rules? So the rules on, I get your credit card on free trial, and I want to continue charging after the free trial's over. What are the rules? Now, it's probably really complex and nuanced, but give us the high level.
So when somebody is designing your page, in general, you need to make sure that there's language that you're going to be auto-renewing above and near where I accept and I'm going to process this free trial. So that's kind of point number one. And we at our last
so hang on, without being super specific about that, what you really just said was be honest with the client, be honest with the buyer.
Absolutely, absolutely. And don't hide it in gray font on a slightly darker gray background.
Yeah, that's
and
not being
assume
honest.
and assume that you've done that. Or if you've got a 2-column type of page and all the language is over here and the order information is over here, that's not necessarily going to get you into good graces, because you want to make sure that people are really understanding it. And one just quick aside, we had Leslie Fair keynote at our last subscription show, and she's the lead attorney for the Consumer Protection Bureau of the FTC. And she delivered this drop-dead funny presentation, and it was great. And talking about regulation and what we all need to do. And one of my favorite slides was like this old kind of English scroll, and what it said was, you know, what the headline giveth, the footnote cannot take away.
Oh, nice.
Isn't that
nice.
great?
Yes.
Yes.
So instead of saying be honest, let me say it differently then. Make sure the buyer knows that they're about to subscribe in perpetuity or until they cancel.
Right. So you want to have language that's very clear that they are going to be billed every 30 days. If you're billing them monthly, but it's really 30 days, then you need to say it's every 30 days, or you're billing them at the end of the month, okay? Or the first of the month. So you need to be very, very clear about that. And when they enter a free trial, you need to send communications to them to let them know that their free trial is ending. And be very clear about that on, you know, day 4, there's, you know, different things there,
Right.
but you need to communicate them so that they have an opportunity to cancel out. That's regulated. Now, best practices, you want to do that anyway, because you don't want to have people calling you up when they see their first charge and calling up the credit card company, and then you start getting chargebacks and complaints, and then you're starting now to pay fees to the credit card companies because you're a higher risk and you're getting a lot of chargebacks. So, you know, the regulation is there, but honestly, good business is making it easy, very understandable, and then people are going to want to do business with you.
Kathy, I could have these conversations all day. This is so much fun, but we got to wrap this up.
Okay, I know.
What's one piece of pricing advice you would give our listeners that you think could have a big impact on their business?
The pricing advice, I would really want your listeners to talk to their customers deeply, okay? And really understand their customers. Like, so I want everybody that's listening here to take one of their customers out to lunch. This is really great. I know you were not expecting this answer, but but what I want you to do is to understand the nuances that don't come through a survey. And they don't you through surveying and all the wonderful tools that we have, get out there and do some qualitative interaction with your target customer. And what's going to come out of that, Mark, is an understanding of some value that you're providing to that customer that you would never understand if you had just done a survey. And then through that, you can understand better if your pricing is appropriate, or maybe you could do an add-on or do something different. But you really need to get into your gut, really know that customer, get on the phone if you can't meet them in person, but do it. And then you can really understand how you're serving that customer and where there might be some more opportunities, whether it's raising prices or doing some add-ons, as I mentioned.
Okay, so that was an awesome answer. And the only thing that was wrong with it,
Uh-oh, sorry.
no, the only thing that was wrong with it was when you said, I wouldn't have expected that. Because I teach this constantly.
No way. Okay.
We
okay.
have to go listen to our market. We have to understand how much
Mhm.
value we're delivering. How do they perceive the value of our products? If we're
Mhm.
not doing that, how are we ever going to figure this game out?
I know. I
So,
know. I know.
Nice. Awesome answer. Awesome.
Thank you.
Kathy, thank you so much for your time today. If anybody wants to contact you, how can they do that?
Well, you can head on right over to subscriptioninsider.com. You can reach me at Kathy KG Sexton at subscriptioninsider.com. But everything's over there, and you can check us out.
Excellent. All right, episode 58, all done. Let's see, my favorite part of today's podcast had to be learning about the rules that I'm breaking for subscription trials. So we'll go fix those pretty soon. What was your favorite part? Please let us know in the comments or wherever you downloaded and listened. And while you're at it, would you please leave us a 5-star review? They are very valuable to us. Don't forget to head on over to championsofvalue.com where we've got the free community that you can join. And you can also now subscribe and get all of the content there, all of the courses. You'll see that as the insiders. If you have any questions or comments about the podcast today or about pricing in general, feel free to email me, mark@impactpricing.com. Now, go make an impact.